Okay, so yesterday we talked about elimination and we talked about how can we solve a problem or a linear system using elimination. But the cases that we looked at yesterday, at least one of the letters had the same coefficient or the opposite sign of the same coefficient, right? So if we looked at the y's or the x's, they had the same number. In this case that we see right now, so that case here, which is 15x minus 5y equals negative 10, and 4x plus 2y equals negative 16, we don't have any letters that have the same coefficient, right? So if you look at the x, the coefficient for x is 15 and 4 for the second equation. If we look at the y's, it's negative 5 and 2. Right? So they both don't have the same coefficient. So in this case, I can't just do simple elimination by just subtracting or adding right away. Okay? There's a step that I need to take before I do the elimination. So in order to do that, I'm going to go back here for a second. In order to do that, I have to do something to my equation to make at least one of the coefficients the same. Okay? And that thing is usually multiplying. So I multiply the equation by a number so I can make one of the coefficients the same. Now the question is, do I want to eliminate the x or do I want to eliminate the y, and does it matter? Technically, it does not matter which one you pick. You can pick to eliminate the y's or you can pick to eliminate the x. Okay? The thing is that you have to be careful is, why do you pick the harder one? Right? Pick always the easier one to eliminate. Okay? So let's think about some ideas here. If I want to make the x's the same coefficient, what would I do? So if I multiply the first by 4 and the second by 15, right? So if I multiply this, and if I multiply this by 15, right? Then the 4 times the 15 and the 4 times the 15, that's going to make them the same. That's one way to do it, okay? And I can eliminate the x's by doing subtraction in this case. Now, if I don't want to eliminate the x and I want to eliminate the y, what do I do?
Multiply the first one
By 2.
the second by negative 5.
By 5, right? So if I multiply this by 2 and multiply this by 5. Now, which one is easier to do? Multiply by 4 and 15 or multiply by 2 and 5? 2 and 5. So why would I pick the first method, right? I don't need to do that. I can pick the second method, okay? Now, what we're going to do right now is we're going to look at both of the scenarios, and then we're going to see that we're going to get the same answer, okay? So, the first scenario here is to eliminate the y. Just can you guys read the equations for me again?
15x
Yeah.
minus 5 equals negative 10. And second, 4x plus 2y equals negative 16.
Sorry, what was it? 4x?
4x plus 2y.
1 second.
4x
Plus 2y,
y equals negative 16.
negative 16. Okay. So, in this case, I want to eliminate the y, right? Because that's what it says here. So since the positive value of the coefficient of the y's are 5 and 2, then the lowest common multiple is 5 and 2, or 5 and 2 is needed. So let's look at this. What's the lowest common multiple? Can you name the multiples for me? So let's look at the multiples of 2. What are the multiples of 2? 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, right? So these are the multiples of 2. So 2 times 1, 2 times 2, 2 times 3, 2 times 4, and so on and so forth. Now, what are the multiples of 5?
5, 10, 15.
Okay, let's stop for a second. Do you see any common multiple between the two? You see that 10 right here and right here, that's a common multiple. And that's the lowest common multiple. Yes? You guys understand that? So 10, what do I multiply 5 by to give me 10? What do I multiply 2 by to give me 10? 5. So this is what I have to do. I have to multiply this by 2 to get 10, and I have to multiply this by 5 to get 10. So let's see what happens if I do that. This becomes 30x minus 10y equals negative 20. You see I multiplied that 2 by every single term inside that equation. And if I multiply the bottom by 5, that's going to be 20x plus 10y equals to negative, what is it? 16 times 5. So that's 30, what? 100, no. 80? 10, 50, yep, 80. Because 5 6 is 30, 5 times 10 is 50, 50 plus 30 is 80. Okay, so you see right now, do you see that the y's have the same coefficient? One is positive, one is negative. Do you guys see that? Now, I can add or subtract. Now, what did we say yesterday? If they have the different signs, what do? I add. We said that yesterday. I wrote it down. If they have the opposite signs, then you add. So to add, that's going to be what? 30x plus 20x, that's 50x. If I do negative 10y plus 10y, that's 0. Equals negative 20 plus negative 80, that's negative 100. Okay? Because I'm adding negative 20 and negative 80. So that gives me negative 100. Are we okay with that so far? Now, how do I isolate for x? What do I do? Divide by 50, so that becomes negative 2. Okay? So x equals negative 2. All what I have to do right now is take that negative 2 and plug it into one of the original equations, right? And solve for y. Okay? So I can pick whichever one I want. I'm going to pick the second one just because it has smaller numbers. So I'm going to do 4. So this is my next step. 4 times negative 2 plus 2y equals negative 16. So that's going to be negative 8 plus 2y equals negative 16. And then bring the negative 8 over. Becomes a plus 8. So 2y equals negative 8. Divide by 2. So y equals negative 4. And my POI is x is negative 2. And y is negative 4. So the extra step that we took here is we multiplied both equations by a number. Now, sometimes you don't have to multiply both equations. Sometimes it's enough to multiply one of the equations. Okay? Sometimes you have to multiply both.
What is the LCM of 4 and 15?
What?
The LCM of 4 and 15.
You have to multiply probably by 4 and by 15. Did you?
I did, but my x and y
Are different?
The
Yeah, 60. Let's look at the second method. Do you guys have any questions about this? So up to this point, this is the new stuff, up to the blue lines, where we multiplied. But then after that, it's what we did yesterday. Okay? So when it comes to the other method, right, which is, again, it's the same idea. So it's 15x minus 5y equals negative 10, yeah? And then 4x, what was it? Plus 2y equals negative 16. So in this case, if I'm going to try to eliminate the y, my lowest common multiple is if I multiply this by 4 and this by 15. Because if I'm going to list the multiples of 15, let's look at that. 15, 30, 45, 60, 75, right? These are the multiples of 15. The multiples of 4 is 4, 8, 12, 16. I haven't found any yet, right? 20, 24, 28. Haven't found any yet. 32, 36. This is where your multiplication table comes in handy. 40, 44. You guys see, I haven't found anything yet. Nothing matches yet. 48, 52, 56, 60. Now you see that 60 is the match? Yeah? So 60 is the match. So how did I get 60? I multiplied by 1, 2, 3, and 4. So if I multiply 4 by 15, that gives me 60. And then for this one, I multiply by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So I multiply this by 15. Okay? Or an easy way to do it is you divide 60 by 4. You can find that it's 15. These are the harder one. I wouldn't pick this method, personally. I would pick the other method. So let's look at what happens if I multiply this by 4. That's going to be 60x minus 20y equals negative 40. And then that's going to be 60x plus 30y equals, what's negative 16 times? 240. Now, if I look at this, negative 240. Thank you. If I look at this, 60x and 60x, for me to be able to get rid of this, what do? Subtract. So I subtract minus, 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 right? 60 minus 60, that's gone. That's 0. Negative 20y minus 30y, that's negative 50y. And then negative 40 minus negative 20. Eyes on the board for a second. So I have negative 40 minus negative 240. So what happens because I have two negative after each other? Positive. So that's going to be negative 40 plus 200. Sorry, 240. I'm jumping ahead. You see what happened? Now negative and negative makes a positive. Now that's going to give me 200. And now if I want to get rid of the negative 50, I have to divide by negative 50. and that's going to give me negative 4. And to find the x value, you just take that and plug it into the original equation. Again, you can pick whichever one you want. I'm going to pick the second one. So I have 4x plus 2 times negative 4 equals negative 16. So 4x minus 8 equals negative 16. Bring the negative 8 over. So that's 4x equals negative 16 plus 8. 4x equals negative 8. Divide by 4. That gives me negative 2. Is that the same answer that we got earlier? Yes. The POI is negative 2, negative 4. Okay? So the extra step that we have to do here is we have to multiply either both equations or one of the equations. Yes? If I said if the coefficients are the same sign, you subtract because you want to get rid of it. But if the coefficients are opposite sign, then you add. No, if it's a positive and a negative. So you see right here. So right here, I had a positive 10 and a negative 10. Why? Right? Because one is positive and one is negative, then I add the equations. Okay? Because minus 10 plus 10, they cancel each other. Make sense? Now, if I go to this one right here, both equations have a positive sign in front of it. So both of them are positive. Because they're both positive, then I have to subtract. Does that make sense to you guys? Let's do a quick thing here. Do you guys want to copy this?